Welcome to this episode of the Legal Paige podcast. Today's episode is all about coaching, courses, and online offerings, and finding really good business coaches for yourself. All of this is why I knew I needed to bring on my dear friend and business coach and strategist, Laylee Emadi, as the guest on this episode. You guys, Laylee is an educator, podcast host, and photographer with a heart for serving clients and fellow creatives. She believes in serving the creative industry with heartfelt encouragement, honest advice, and a shared pursuit of the ever-elusive balance, quote unquote. As the founder of the Creative Educator Academy, Laylee is passionate about her goal to help you feel confident in your ability to make a difference, create impact, and to build a life doing what you love. In this episode, you guys, we not only get into how to become a business coach and maybe add in online offerings or online courses to your business and really become an educator. But we also really do give some honest advice, like I talk about, and candid suggestions on how to find a really good business coach and kind of things to look out for and no-nos to do as you become a coach and red flags that you may or may not experience. So this episode is a really good one. It's a little longer than we usually have. It's about an hour, but I promise you it's jam-packed with good information about all things business coaching. So let's get into it. You're listening to the Legal Paige podcast, where we chat about life and business with a legal twist. I'm Paige, attorney and photographer helping online businesses and creatives tackle their business dreams without breaking out in hives. No more legal mumbo jumbo. This podcast features simple, bite-sized advice that'll have you legally legit in no time. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I am very, very excited to have my good friend Laylee here to talk all about something that Laylee and I are actually both very passionate about, but she is like the guru of it. So of course I had to bring her on this episode: coaching, courses, and online offerings. Laylee, I know you very well, but I would love for you to introduce yourself to all the legal pagers listening. Tell them what you do and why you do it.
Hey, Paige, thank you so much for having me on. I love you. You already know we do go way back, and that makes this conversation really special to me. Yes, I am so passionate about online education and creative education. I am a former high school teacher and currently kind of part-time photographer. I went from teacher to full-time photographer with a side gig of mentoring and coaching. And now I primarily just do education through my online course, through coaching, through my mastermind. And then I do a little bit of brand photography, and portrait photography for fun, basically, which is amazing. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm so excited to talk about this topic. I know that we're both very, very passionate about it.
Yeah. And we both have kind of similar backgrounds too, where we kind of started in I would say the professional, post-grad world where we used our degrees, and you became a teacher, I became a lawyer. And then we both became photographers, which is awesome. I know you had your niche in photography, which is super cool. You're a phenomenal senior photographer. And then, I kind of dabbled in both like you are right now. You're part-time photographer still. And I did that for a long time. So I know exactly how you're feeling right now when you're building this kind of online education presence or whatever you're trying to build online. Honestly, that's what I'd love to dive into here for people. Is there's so many avenues in the online space to really kind of become a business coach and strategist and to share offerings, whether that's, like you said, through a mastermind or through an online course or just through digital offerings. So you mentioned the Creative Educator Academy, you're a brand photographer, I know you're a speaker. We speak at lots of conferences together. You're a podcast host as well. And then of course you're a business coach and strategist. How did you just start in your entrepreneurial journey? How did you know, when you were teaching, oh, I think I want to now become an entrepreneur on the side, quote unquote?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, it's kind of one of those stories that I feel like a lot of people can relate to, in that it was really just a hobby. My creative outlet was photography. I was teaching full time, and people just started paying me for it. I mean, I hate to say it that I just kind of fell into my lap, but I was doing it for fun. People started posting about it on social media. Thank goodness that we're all, running online businesses in a time where social media does half the job for you in the beginning, at least. And people were marketing for me without my ever sharing that I was doing it. And then it turned into their friends and family would want to hire me. People started paying me. And like the first day I took $1 from anyone, I was like, okay, well, I guess I better be legit about this. Get legally legit, if you will. So I became an LLC. I did all the things. I got a bank account and I just went for it. And it was a really fun part-time gig until it became really overwhelming to do something that is service-based completely part-time, but it was kind of becoming full-time and then having a full-time job on top of that. So that's kind of the long and short of it.
Yeah, I think there's always a time and place where us who are like all in with our full-time job and then we're dipping our toes in the entrepreneur world, you start like your foot and your leg starts going way more into the deep end than you anticipated. And then your whole body's in and just your head is above water. And you're like, okay, I got to like figure this out so I don't drown in the entrepreneur space while I still have my full-time gig. And so lots of people either like move down to part-time and then they're both part-time, or some people just, finally make the jump. For you, that was primarily with photography, but now let's look at the transition. So you did photography primarily, and then you really started getting into coaching. When did you know, like, I really want to do coaching? I'm guessing, Laylee, this is just a theory I have, that it's because of your teaching background, that is something you're probably really passionate about, is helping others and teaching others. How were you able to kind of like mold the two with coaching and business strategy? Because that's a little different than like just coaching photographers on how to be photographers.
It is. And I might be jumping the gun here, but I feel like it's an important part of my story to share, because I think this is where people tend to jump the gun in terms of coaching. I did not start out teaching business strategy. I started out, like you said, I was a teacher. And so a lot of my students, I taught high school. My students and their parents would all have nicer cameras than I had, but had no idea how to use them. And they started asking for tips and tricks, which turned into small workshops and turned into one-on-one. And I was teaching the skill and the craft. Now, as my business started to grow and I realized like, I actually have a knack for business ownership beyond the fact that I can use a camera. And my photography was not, I'll be totally blunt here, it was not like show stopping. Like, I'm fine. I'm a good photographer. I feel I have decent work, but by no means am I, Jose Villa. Like, I'm not going to be like the best of the best, but I was good at growing a business and I was good at marketing and I was good at handling the back end of things. And as I started to grow years and years later, I realized this is something that I can show and teach somebody else. And I'm already doing it. I think when you come from the teaching world, you unintentionally are teaching other people all the time. So I was showing people what I was doing. I was sharing all of this insight that I had, and I was seeing them find success in what I was teaching them to do. And that's kind of how it clicked for me. I was like, okay, I've done this myself successfully. I've shown other people how to do it successfully. It's working for all of us. I think this is something that I could potentially help a lot of people make an impact on their lives and businesses if I'm willing to step up and step into the role of coach. But that took years to get there. I mean, it was a very organic walk, I think.
Yeah. And, you mentioned, I teach just naturally with people, and especially one-on-one and in person. And that got me to thinking, Laylee, I've talked to a lot of people who just literally go from like, I do this as a job, or I am this creative, I'm an entrepreneur in this industry. Boom, I'm going to launch something online and do an online offering. How do you feel about that transition versus people who really push for try to do some in-person teaching offerings first? Try to host a workshop, host a retreat, do some one-on-one, maybe mentoring or VIP offerings before then you create something that's like huge and mass and online and lots of people can purchase. How do you feel about that transition versus just like, boom, going online? Because I know people really struggle with that. Like, how do I do this? How do I know what people want and what to put online? Would it be beneficial for me to just like kind of start small, so to speak, and in person versus online?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that I would 100% agree that I see a lot of that as well, especially working now primarily with growing educators. A lot of people really want to just dive into the online space because there is a lot of potential for, making a really good living, creating extra impact, reaching more people. But I feel like there are so many pitfalls when you just jump into that as opposed to starting with the one. So inside the academy, I have this phrase where I always say, start with the one. I don't care if you want to do one-on-one. You don't have to want to do that long term, but you have to start there because nothing beats getting into the brain of that one person that needs your help. Because if that one person needs something from you, they're going to be able to better communicate that to you for you to be able to better understand it and then create better offerings in mass, as opposed to starting off being like, I'm going to create this massive course, but I don't actually know if the one person needs it. We're just going to find out and see. And that's where you see a lot. It kind of feels like you're trying to take a shortcut, but it ends up taking you a lot longer to get to where you want to go.
Yeah. So you're saying, if you are wanting to become kind of an educator and look into making online offerings in some way, shape, or form, you don't necessarily have to do it in person. I love that philosophy that you have, but you could do one-on-one coaching virtually and start there. Start with the one versus like, oh, I'm just going to somehow put together this online course. That's really only what I think people need versus what they actually need. Just to tag on there too, I would say, depending on how much time you are willing to put into kind of becoming an educator, which I always say, you're always continuing to learn. You're always becoming a better and better educator. So it should be a lifelong process. But for me, it's like I did one-on-one mentoring. I did like in-person retreats, which was really fun, and workshops. And then I did like online group coaching. And then I did online one-on-one coaching before I even like launched my first online course that honestly, you guys, had nothing to do with what I was teaching all of those people. It was more just like I was gathering a ton of information and figuring out what I actually wanted to have an online course about to begin with. Like, what do the masses really need? And then I could help kind of direct them in that path. And mine's obviously so niche because it's legal. But I think for lots of people, you could find that maybe your in-person offerings or your one-on-one group like online virtual coaching, and then maybe some smaller group coaching online is more beneficial for kind of the full gamut of things. And then you have smaller online courses that are very specific and niche to this topic. And so then you can send people to those smaller online courses. Laylee, I just wanted to highlight there that you don't have to do in person. And I think lots of people are scared of that. Or they're just more like, I just want to be all online. Like, I want passive income. I get that. But I don't think you can just like suddenly be like, boom, I'm starting a passive income business. I think you have to learn along the way. So what are your recommendations, Laylee, for someone who's out there thinking like, okay, I want to get into coaching or courses and online offerings for my business. What are like the first things they need to do, Laylee? Give them kind of a step-by-step here.
Yeah, I think the first thing that you need to do is figure out what you want to teach and who you want to teach it to. So I guess that's two things. But if you don't know who you want to teach things to and you don't know what it is that you want to teach, you're kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. And that's just never a really good strategy in anything you do. So figuring out the who and the what, and then you want to work on, once you have those two things, figuring out the how. So how do you want to deliver that information? And that goes back to what you were saying, Paige, about do you want to do it in course format? Do you want to do something that is, more hands-on where you're maybe in a group, or do you want to just focus on the one-on-one? What type of education do you want to deliver? And I don't think that you can know that without knowing who it is that you want to teach to and what it is that you want to teach. Those are kind of the hardest things, I think, for people to discover. But I also think that they're the most important things that somebody can work toward discovering before they find success in actually teaching.
All right. So now I'm sitting here and I'm pretending like I'm a person who's like, okay, Laylee, I hear you, but how do I narrow that down? Like, I'm so confused. And this is where I think I'm just going to be bold and blunt here. And you guys know I am on my own podcast because it's mine and I can do what I want on this podcast. But I feel like people make the wrong decision that they have it all figured out and they don't need help. They can help others, but they don't need help with their own business helping others. And I'm like, why wouldn't you get a business coach? Like if you're stuck on the how, or you're stuck on the like what to produce and you're stuck on the who to teach, like find yourself a business coach that can kind of help you kind of sift through all those potential education offerings that you have rolling around in your head. Do you agree here, Laylee, that people just miss that? They're like, oh no, I want to be a business coach, but I don't need a business coach.
Okay, if you want to be a business coach, you need a business coach more than anybody in the world. Yes. I think that those who educate need educators. They need to invest in their own education, I would say tenfold. Like I have not had a year go by where I have not invested in my own education once, twice, 3 times in a year, every single year. And yes, sometimes it's harder for me to find something because I feel like, once you take something and you're like, okay, well, I've already done this. Now what do I do? But that's on me to find out where are my areas of growth. So absolutely 100% agree with you. And I think if you're also feeling stuck on the how, the what, the why, all the things that you need to figure out before you start stepping into this role, if you, aside from investing in education for yourself, I think you also need to take note and take stock of how self-aware you are. I think so many people struggle to be truly self-aware about their strengths, about what they really do have figured out, about what they are actually good at. We look, I think, for outside validation a lot. And I think it's very important to be self-aware. And if you can't get there alone, circling back, you need somebody to step in and to help you and to tell you, like, this is what I'm seeing you be good at. What do you think about it? And really get you out of your own head and get you into the perspective of thinking like, is this something that I can actually feel really strong about teaching?
Yeah. And I think that also helps you sift through like, okay, this is a topic within whatever educational offering you're going to put out there that I am an expert in. Like I can really showcase how I went from A to Z with this niche. Maybe it's marketing. Maybe it's like online social media presence. Maybe it's building a back-end digital product website. Maybe it's customer service. Maybe it's building out an affiliate program. I don't know. I mean, there's so many different things out there, but you're going to have areas where you're not so good at that. And that's okay. I think every educator is not going to be the best at every single niche of being an entrepreneur. I just don't even think that's possible. I see entrepreneurs out there all the time wearing too many hats. And I know we have to do it at the beginning of our businesses, but you're never going to be successful. You're never going to grow and scale if you think you can do that forever because you're just not good at wearing all the hats. No one person is. Multitasking is like, we think it's a thing, especially as females, but it's just not. Like you got to like get over that. And I think we all learn that as we like age and we have years behind us. And so I would say, Laylee, that when you kind of have a business coach that's able to see it from another perspective, you're too close to your genius. You need someone to be like, okay, you're good at X, Y, Z. And then you could get guest experts or you could get help for your educational offering in, ABC. And those are the things that maybe you just need to kind of outsource a little bit to help the people that you want to educate. And I have seen people do that really well. And then I've seen people do that not so well, where they start teaching things that from an outside perspective, I'm like, I really don't think you're good at that. Or I'm like, wait a second, why are you teaching that when you already outsource that in your business? Like that makes no sense. Like you should have the guest expert or someone that you're outsourcing to help them be like, this is what I do and why I do it. And this is how I work in their business and make it successful from that end. I don't know if you have any, I just kind of went off on a tangent there, but I think it really wraps into the whole business coach for business coaches situation. I think everyone just forgets about that. And if you have anything to add, I'd love to hear it.
No, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, and I like this tangent a lot. I think that it's needed. And I do think that there is, I see it so much. And I know you do too, Paige, coming up, over the past 9 or 10 years of being in the industry, in the creative industry in general, and just seeing all these coaches come out and say, I'm a coach for coaches, which is fine. But I do think that there's a lot of things that are happening that are misleading. And I think that, again, it all boils down to like, how can you honestly say that you're going to help somebody? And if you can't, then you have a problem. Like if you're teaching things that you outsource, if you I'm just reiterating everything you've already said, but I would say I completely agree.
Okay. So let's just end this with like, okay, you got to find a business coach. We kind of know that. Like you need help with helping others. It's just a thing. And I think it's going to serve everyone that you help way better because you're going to be more in tune with why you're educating and what you're educating and how you're an expert in XYZ. So how would you suggest people really just give them kind of like the first few guidance steps to finding the right business coach? What if, do they need to go take an online course first and see if they like that person? Do they just follow them? Do they have like an initial discovery call? How do they know if they actually want to do one-on-one coaching with that person? Like I would honestly not know where to go if it wasn't for, I have lots of friends in the industry and I'm able to just ask like, hey, did you like coaching with this person? But I don't think everyone has that luxury of like knowing a mass amount of people in the online entrepreneur world. And like you said, you and I have 9 to 10 years in this. So where would people start to find a good business coach that would fit them really well?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I think that there are a few things that you can do and a few things I would encourage anybody to do. One is kind of stop yourself from jumping into a coaching relationship with somebody who has a massive following on social media just because they have a massive following on social media. I think that I've fallen into this trap myself where you say, okay, well, this clearly means that somebody has, they seem like it is a really valid option to work with them because obviously all these people are following them. All these people know, like, and trust them. So I can too. And I think you set yourself up for like a red flag in that situation. So I would encourage anybody who's looking for a coach to seek out like actual testimonials of people who have worked with them beforehand, see what the transformation is that coach is promising or is advertising to happen. Find out what areas that coach really would consider themselves an expert in. If somebody is saying that they're an expert in everything, that is a huge red flag. If somebody is saying, I'm a business coach, period, and there's no kind of like, there's no more detail about what it is that they teach, what it is that they can do for you, that's a problem. Like Paige said, you could be good at a lot of things, but you probably are not an expert in everything business related and everything education related. For me personally, when people inquire to work with me as a business coach, if they come in and they're like, hey, help me grow my photography business, could I say yes? Yeah, I could probably help them out. Will I refer them to other people who spend every single day and night researching the photography market? Absolutely, I will, because I'm spending every day researching the online education world so that I can serve growing educators. It's all about, I think, what that educator, what that coach is really focusing their expertise in. And then, like I said, of course, you want to check testimonials. And if you can get your hands on somebody who has already worked with them, I think that is gold. I know that it's hard if you might not have like a ton of friends in the industry, but if you can like track down people using social media, I don't know if that's like an unpopular thing to do, but like if I see a testimonial or if I see an ad, and I have like somebody I've developed some kind of like casual acquaintanceship with on social media, I will reach out and say like, hey, what did you think about working with X, Y, and Z? Did you get your money's worth? Was it good for you? And then of course, if it's a high level investment, I mean, really if it's any investment, but especially if you're being asked to spend, over $5,000 to $7,000, I require a call. Like somebody has got to get on a call with me before I spend over $5,000 with them. If they say that they are not taking call, I'm actually pulling from personal experience here. If they refuse to get on a call with me, I'm not paying them that amount of money. I just recently ran into this because as I mentioned, I do invest in my own education every single year. And I signed on with a coaching program and they reached out for me to re-up at the end of my year. And I said, yeah, if you get on a call with me so I can tell you what worked and what didn't, and they refused because that wasn't what they envisioned as scaling their business. And so I didn't give them my money when I would have if they would have gotten on a call with me. So I think requesting a call, kindly demanding that, I think is definitely within your rights as the person who is purchasing. So yeah, testimonials, get on a call and just be really, really cautious about what it is that they're promising you at the end of your time together.
I love that. And I wanted to add here, as you were talking, I was like, oh, I think people really need to hear this. There's a lot of like online educational business coach offerings that are like the tiered approach out there. They're not necessarily MLMs, but they're pretty close to it, where the top dog, for lack of a better word, is just there. And they're the ones marketing and advertising. But like, are you actually going to reach that person or coach with that person or talk with that person? Or is it just like they're going to get on one call during your coaching experience that's like to thousands of people, but that's it? Like, you're never going to get your Q&As answered by them. Are you going to get the runaround? And like Laylee said, who are you getting on a call with is really important. Who are you giving your money to? Because if they have a whole team of people that are trying to work with you and serve you, maybe that works for some people. But I would say the vast majority of people who are like wanting to become business coaches or scaling what they know and like trying to help others, I think they honestly first just need like that one-on-one real good business coach connection that may cost a little more, you guys. And that's where it's like the money is kind of challenging in the monetary aspect of it, because someone who's offering a group coaching online business coach educational offering to you for like $4.99, I'm like, okay, that's really inexpensive. And like, this seems like a great deal. And here are all the things they're offering, but who's actually teaching you that? And so be very, very cognizant of that. Who are you getting on a call with? Is it kind of a tiered educational, like coaching experience where you're kind of just like the low level people, I would say, in the business are offering like customer service to you versus actually offering business education to you? They're just kind of trying to like help feed the beast and the funnel that they've created on their back end of their business. And how much are you actually getting with the coach that you want to be coached by? So that's what I just wanted to put in there. Okay, so let's go back to, we found an online coach. Let's just say that. We found the perfect online coach, and now we're getting coached to help our business offerings. Let's go back to like, you want to be some type of business strategist or online coach helping others. What are like some things that business owners who have probably been, I don't know, a phenomenal florist or phenomenal wedding planners, and now they want to teach others how to do that, what do they kind of forget to have in their back pocket? Obviously, like contracts, I think people forget about those in terms of like, oh, well, now you're bringing on different types of clients, coaching clients, you need contracts for that versus like a florist contract where it kind of is hard for us to like change our frame of mind in that respect. But is there anything else other than contracts, Laylee, you would suggest people remember when they start getting into the coaching space?
Yeah, for sure. Contracts, obviously. But of course, I think the biggest thing that people forget is that it takes the same amount of time, maybe longer, to get yourself set up and up to the level that you're at in whatever industry that you have grown into. It takes that same amount of time in the education industry. And so just allowing that time to grow and to really invest in yourself time-wise, I think is something people forget. So you've got to get systems set up for the education side, the coaching side, the strategy side of your business, the same way that you have systems set up in your florist, wedding planning, whatever skill or craft or service-based industry that you're in. You probably have really clean systems with lots of templates and lots of like scheduling tools and all the things that you use in your business. You're going to have to also set that up in your other business too. You're also going to be growing that skill. Education and coaching and strategy, these are all skills that need to be grown. So that means that you can't really just take what you've done yourself and be like, okay, here's what I did, go. Like, no, you're going to have to figure out, how do I communicate this to somebody? How do I create a curriculum? Not to get super teachery on you, but like, how do I craft a plan to actually communicate the things that I want to with this person who is entrusting me with their business. That's a skill that you're going to have to grow. So just allowing yourself that time to do so, continually working on growing that skill and craft. I think a lot of people look at education and at sharing your knowledge as an easy way to add a revenue stream into your business. And I could talk about this forever. I think it definitely is a great way to do it, but I don't think it's easy because I think it does take a lot of time to become an expert educator, the way that it took a lot of time to become an expert service provider.
Yeah, you are going to have as many failures and successes in your education entrepreneurial journey as you are when you started your other entrepreneurial journey, whatever that may be. I think that's really important to people is they're like, oh, I've already had all these failures and successes. Like I've learned from those. I'm not going to have that in my, like when I scale and grow as an educator. That's just simply not true. Coming from experience, I tried to when I was transitioning from like photographer to, I don't know, am I going to do an online legal platform? I was in the in-between stage and I was like trying to I had a coach and we were trying like all these different things of like how we were going to push my online mastermind is kind of what it was out there into the world. And I was trying to scale it too quickly. And like what I did to begin with really worked. And then what I tried to scale it to didn't work. And it was kind of a big failure. And it was hard for me to come back from that. But I wish I would have had the foresight back then to be like, okay, but what did you learn from this experience, Paige? And how are you going to be a better educator moving forward? And then just word to the wise here. You will see other business coaches out there asking for thousands of dollars for their business coach experience, for you to be their client. And that is fine, but they have probably had lots of experience being a business coach to get to those $1,000 ticket prices, to be in a group coaching or one-on-one VIP experience with them. It is okay to start small, and it's not going to be like, oh, I don't know very much. Why wouldn't you want to start small? I think, Laylee, my first online group coaching experience, I had people pay like $375 for. Like it was nothing. And I had maybe like 15 ladies as a part of it. And still to this day, those people are like, that was one of the most successful group coaching mastermind experiences I've ever had. And she could have charged way, way, way more. But for me, it was more about learning what they needed and helping them and being like, okay, this is what I'm good at and this is what I am not good at. And I didn't want them to pay a lot of money and feel like they didn't get enough out of it. That would be the worst thing that could happen and extremely detrimental to my kind of educational entrepreneurial journey versus start small and then scale. So that's really important as well. And I think people forget that, but just know that, of course, you're not going to be really profitable or making very much at the beginning while you're still in the learning stages and the startup stages of becoming a business coach. What are some no-nos, Laylee, that you see coaches making at the beginning? Can you just give a couple examples of please try to avoid this when you become a business coach, because either it's slimy or scammy, or it's never going to help the people that are your clients or your prospective clients that are out there. Just try to avoid these things because it usually doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many. I hate to say that, but there are so many. Probably the top ones I would say sound like common sense, but you would be surprised at how often I see them. One that I can pull from personal experience is do not ever apply for somebody's coaching and then take their copy and create your own coaching with their copy. So, I have a lot of different ways that people can work with me, and I track the people who inquire because I want to make sure that it's a good fit on both ends. And when it doesn't work out, it's fine by me. I want to make sure that it's a good fit. Like you said, Paige, you want to make sure that you're delivering what you promised to deliver. And I think that a big part of that, a really big missing piece, is making sure that it's a good fit on both ends. So when it's not, it's totally fine, but I do get invested in people really easily. And when I see them turn around and sell my copy, my sales page copy, my, marketing copy to market their own coaching programs, that is a big no-no. And it's obviously for ethical reasons, it's a no-no. But beyond that, it's not going to do you any good to use my copy and the way that I talk and the way that I communicate to sell your education, because you are going to deliver education very differently than I would once people get in. So once people make that investment, what are you going to do? You can't copy and paste what I'm saying inside of my coaching program. So you've got to find your own voice. You've got to make sure that you're finding your own tactics, your own spin on teaching. And that goes, I think that could go into a whole second point of not just regurgitating things that you've already learned from other educators, even if you've invested in them and you don't think that you're stealing necessarily, but you are just kind of reteaching something that you have been taught. Now, there is, of course, like this concept of, is anything original? I mean, there's just good advice is good advice. And I agree with that statement. I think that taking it back to teaching, like you didn't invent like the math that you're teaching in a math class, but you are teaching it in a way that is specific to you as an educator. The way that I taught was not the same as my team members in the classroom, even though we were teaching the same things. So yes, you might be teaching the same things as other people, but just really staying true to yourself and to your experience and leaning into your expertise. And I think all of that boils down to trusting yourself as an expert. So I would say probably in a roundabout way, the biggest no-no that I would caution any up and coming educators to be aware of would be not trusting yourself as the expert. Like really lean into the fact that you want to be a coach, a strategist, an educator for a reason. What is that reason? What backs that claim up? And really trust yourself to deliver on that without looking around you. Keep those blinders on.
Yeah, I have two follow-ups to that. One, because I can't help it and I'm a lawyer and I always think legal stuff. It's just like, I can't help. It is something that's ingrained in my brain. As Laylee's talking, you cannot copyright ideas, you guys. So I think people always forget that. Like, this idea I have is mine and no one can steal it. Like, good luck with that because it'll never fly in court. Like, ideas cannot be copyrighted, but the way that you fix that idea in a tangible medium to get all legal on you, legalese, what it means is like whatever Laylee is putting in a PDF and how she's structuring that educational process is copyrighted by her business. And same with online like courses. I have had a lot of, one of the biggest copyright issues and cases I've ever had is, you guys, for hundreds of thousands of dollars they were fighting over. And it was because of a copyright infringement with an online course. So it is a big deal and don't do it. Like, it's not worth it. The way that an educator is putting all of their ideas together, whether they learn that idea at a conference, at a breakout session, whether they learn that idea from someone keynoting in a virtual summit, that's all fine and dandy. But you can't steal their copy, you can't steal their website, and you can't steal their slides, their documents that people are downloading. And that's a big no-no lately. I see quite a bit. And I had another follow-up, but of course I forgot about it because I was just thinking about legal things. But one of the things I really wanted to touch on as well is everyone's like online. And let's all be real. Over the past year, we're like, the online space isn't going anywhere. I think people understand how amazing it is. Okay, hold on. I remembered what I was going to say. And we're going to get to that in a second. But you guys, this is like total Paige brain here. I am pregnant. So there you go. I'm going to throw that out there. I feel when you said like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you wanting to be an educator, Laylee? The one no I always see people doing is they're doing it for money. Like, if you're just being an educator to like have some passive income, or someone told you along the way, like, hey, you could just like put all that together and boil it down into a small mini course. And then you could make like $97 a month per person who's like in it. And you just have this like beautiful revenue stream of passive income every month. If that is your end goal, you should never be an educator because you are not passionate about being an educator or being a business coach and helping others. And I know Laylee she's just preached from the high mountaintops about this because in her innate being is being a teacher. Like that is what she is so passionate about. And I know, Laylee, you teach people this in your masterminds and on your retreats and in your online course. But is there anything you could tell people, like, if this happens to you, like if you start thinking this way as an educator, put up a red flag for yourself if it starts really just becoming about money, because people are going to see that. And I will just say here, like people notice, the outside world notices. And then I think you're headed down a dark path and you're going to be digging yourself out of a hole later on of like, no, like I was passionate about that. I wasn't just doing it for money. And you're going to be headed down a hole of like bad testimonials or people, talking about their experience not being great, even though it was $10,000 and they thought they were getting a lot out of it and they didn't, because you weren't passionate about educating in the first place, right? So Laylee, that was like the one tangent I wanted to, it wasn't a tangent. It was more like that was I wanted to tail on what you were talking about before I get into my next thing. But what would you say to that, Laylee? Because I know you have lots of thoughts.
Oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts. I think not only as somebody who works with educators, but as you mentioned, I mean, I shared about this on my own podcast too. I spent, $10,000 not too long ago on a course where the leader was very passionate, but I think things grew really fast. And I think when things grow really fast, your instinct is to scale for profit. And that's amazing. I do not fault anybody for wanting to make money. We've got to make money to live our lives. However, if you're making a lot of money and your goal is to make a lot of money, but you forget about your initial goal of helping people, that's where you start to become this shell of leadership and like this shell of empty promises and claims that you care. And people pick up on that so quickly, so quickly. I think the biggest red flag would be, or the biggest thing that I would say would be an indicator for anybody who's worried that this might happen to them at some point, is to never stop taking note of what people are saying to you inside of your programs. So making sure that you've built in an opportunity for people to share feedback. In my situation with the coach who I don't advocate for anymore, I tried to share feedback and was not given the opportunity to do so. That is a massive red flag. I tried so hard to give my time freely to give feedback about what I was not experiencing success in within their program, which is gold for an educator. Like, I thought I was doing them a favor by saying, and I was doing them a favor by saying, I will get on a call with you and I will outline what could use work and what is slipping through the cracks and what I am witnessing firsthand is going south in your program. And you won't take 15 minutes to talk to me about it. Girl, that is a red flag. So I think just consistently being aware of the fact that like, you've got to set up processes for people to share their feedback openly and honestly with you, because if you're not receiving that feedback and you're not open to it, you will end up working only to work for profit and without checking in that what you're doing is actually helpful, is actually impactful, is actually educational.
Yeah. And I'm thinking too, I think we learn a lot as like educators, have that initial discovery call. Laylee, it kind of comes full circle here where we already talked about this. Like, you want to understand where people are at, make sure it's a good fit, get them in your, educational space, be their business coach, continue to get their feedback throughout the time of working with them. And then I think people forget to do like exit interviews. And we are taught sometimes too, like before we even create online courses. I think Amy Porterfield teaches this, honestly, if I'm going to throw it out there, because many of us have taken Amy Porterfield's like digital course academy or whatever it's called. And she's kind of one of the first people to do that thing. And I know that a lot of people have taken her approach and now do business coaching offerings where you do the initial discovery call. That's really important. Before you create an online course, you need to talk with a bunch of people and figure out what they want. That's where we were saying, like, probably don't do just that. Like, do some one-on-one coaching to begin with. Host a couple retreats to start. So I would say go above and beyond that. But I think that what's missing is exit interviews. And this is really, really common, you guys, in just the business brick and mortar world. I am so used to having exit interviews when I am done with a professional job. I think it's really important to have exit interviews where I think the business owner becomes a better business owner. If they do, like if people give their 2 weeks or they're terminating them, it needs to be kind of a two-way street of suggestions and advice and feedback on what the business owner can do better. And then vice versa. Like, here's how I see you've ended this coaching experience. And here is what I see for you moving forward. And I think people just are like, I'm done. I'm exhausted. I don't want to do any more with this coaching group. Like, I've given all I can. And I think one of the things that people forget about is that exit interview, that exit of your program. And if you could make that more one-on-one, I would say lots of business coaches would be more successful by doing that. I know it's probably not feasible for lots of different programs because you may have like 100 people in your online course or something, but maybe offer it to people like, hey, I'd love to jump on a phone call with 5 of you and get feedback. That's really important to me. Even people just seeing that shows that you care. You care about the education process and you care about coaching and helping others to their success, even if they didn't reach the level of success that they thought they would by the end of the program with you. You need to know that, and you need to know why, so that you can fill in the holes in your coaching program.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it is important to find a way to fit that in no matter what your offering is. So for example, with my course, once you complete it, you have like a feedback form, and then there's always an option to set up a quick call with me if they need it, or if they have something in particular they want to share. Because if somebody is offering me feedback, that is, that's free information for you to be able to improve your offerings. Now, I don't necessarily seek out those calls for my course because it is a higher volume offering, but for my mastermind, which is a very intimate group, they each get a call with me at the end where we figure out where they're going to go from there. But it's also a chance for me to say, how was your experience? Let's talk about if there's anything that you feel could have gone better. I think opening yourself up to constructive critique and criticism is extremely important as an educator. And I think that it's something that a lot of people struggle with because they want to be viewed as the expert. They want to be viewed as perfect, but we are people. We're not going to get it right 100% of the time. In the experience I had with the coaching program that I didn't super end on a great note with, there was a lot of good in it that I could have shared as well. But we're human beings. And so you want to make sure that people can see, hey, these are like where some pitfalls are happening. This is where a disconnect is happening. I'm happy to help you get there. So you as the educator, you need to be able to say like, oh yes, I would like that help because I would like to improve.
Yeah, and you had a good transition to where I was planning on going, which is like in-person things, because we're all so over, if I'm going to be bold here, over online stuff. I mean, we've been doing it ad nauseum the past 18 months. Like, I think we've had enough virtual summits. I think they're still going to be there. And I think they're very, very, very helpful to a wide variety of people. But I think there is definitely a need for in-person stuff coming up. Now the country is opening back up a little bit. Vaccinations are happening. I think in-person retreats and workshops and then masterminds, Laylee, is kind of what I wanted to talk about with you because I know you host one and I know people have varying feelings about masterminds. I have good feelings about masterminds and I had a very, very good mastermind experience with a large, mastermind educational offering, I guess I would say, from someone. But I think people feel that sometimes masterminds aren't worthwhile. What would you say to like why people need to get into in-person events this coming year? I would say if you haven't invested in something in 2021 yet, which is fine because I think we were all like, what's going to happen this year? I'm not totally sure. That's how I felt. I really wanted to get into this big mastermind this year. One, at the beginning of the year, like end of December 2020, I was like, I don't know. I kind of want to start a family. And then I was also like, I don't even know what's happening next year with COVID and what, how is the world going to be turning come, March or April when my first mastermind retreat was going to be. So I decided to hold off, but it's definitely something I want to invest in 2022. And I honestly think people need to be looking for that in-person stuff because you're going to miss out on some really crucial things that happen in person that you just cannot get online. So Laylee, how would you suggest people go searching for in-person workshops or retreats that are longer periods of time than just a workshop, or masterminds that last for 3 to 6 to 12 months? And, for next year in particular.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that there's very few things that can replace an in-person experience. I like my mastermind is 6 months long and it's virtual, but with an option for an in-person component. Now, in the past, it was not an option. It was just included. But of course, right now, trying to be cognizant of how people feel comfort-wise. Some people are unable to attend. It's optional. But the magic that happens when you're together in person is quite irreplaceable, if I'm being honest. Aside from my actual mastermind, I have a retreat called the Next Level Retreat that I started in, I think it was 2017 was when I started it. And it's a week together. And it is my absolute favorite thing. The takeaways that happen there are just phenomenal. And I wasn't able to have it last year. It was delayed. And so I do think that, or was postponed until about a month ago. We had it finally. And I do think that it's really, really important. I think a couple ways to answer your question about how to find them is, like I said, kind of in the same way that you look for a coach. You want to find a leader whose message resonates with you. You want to find somebody whose personality type fits yours. When you are in close quarters like that, you want to make sure that you have the same values and at least like something that you feel comfortable staying and being open and transparent with those people. Because I think that one pitfall people fall into when they try to find a mastermind group is, again, it's the same thing as a business coach. You see somebody with a ton of followers, you see somebody with a really big audience and you're like, okay, well, obviously it's going well. I'm going to join it. But if you haven't done, your due diligence in figuring out like, what is this person's personality like? What is this person like when they're talking about something they're passionate about? Will our values align? Will I be able to put down my walls? Will I be able to drop all of my barriers and be able to completely immerse myself in that situation? So that would be the first thing I would say is really important when you're seeking out a mastermind, any kind of group experience, is making sure that it's something where you're not going to feel like you have to sit back with walls up, because no change will happen if you do that. You've got to be able to like show up fully as yourself and feel comfortable enough to hear from everybody inside the group.
Yeah. And I would say too, for people who are looking at workshops or retreats or masterminds, is there's kind of a differing feel for all of those. Like I would say a workshop is more of, this is a one-day thing. This is what you're going to learn. This is what I'm going to teach. That's about it. You're not going to get a lot of one-on-one mentoring. There's not a lot of Q&A time. Like this is a workshop for X purpose, whether that's a styled shoot workshop or whether that's a workshop on marketing or what have you, And then I think a retreat like you have, I love the Next Level Retreat that you host. I'm always jelly when you post about it too. I'm like, I want to be there. It's probably because I miss retreats so much and I love you and I love everyone who goes. So maybe I'll come next time. But I think for retreats, you guys, if you're looking for something that's like a little bit shorter of an experience, like you just want one big in-person weekend, I would suggest that you talk to the educator about, are they going to be there? Are they going to be present? Are they staying at the same location as you? That's a big one, because sometimes I see educators staying somewhere else. And then you're like, wait a second, like I paid for this so that I could have kind of 2 or 3 uninterrupted days with them. Like, of course they're sleeping and like food time or whatever. But I really think that the best educators are the ones who like fully immerse themselves in the retreat experience and are there sitting on the couches with you and like answering questions when you have that 15-20 minute break versus like leaving completely and being like, okay, I'll be back at 9 a.m. tomorrow kind of thing. Because yeah, you want to learn from the people who are also there. But that is not the point of a retreat, I would say. That is the difference between a retreat and a mastermind. A mastermind is more for people who want to learn from the other people in the mastermind. So the mastermindees who are there learning from each other, who are kind of at the same place in their business. Like Laylee said, there's a lot of online virtual things that happen with masterminds that are just beautiful. And then there's usually in-person, events along the way where you still get to meet up and talk with one another. And then, of course, the mastermind leader is leading different teaching offerings. And I would say for masterminds and for retreats, one, ask like where the educator is staying. And if they want to stay somewhere else and like conserve their energy or what have you, I'm sure we've all heard that before. That's fine. Like I get that they're putting up boundaries, they're respecting their space, but you need to be okay with that because I've been in a part of experiences where people were really, really, really put off by that. They paid thousands of dollars and they were like, wasn't your energy supposed to be put into us? I'm very confused here. And then I would also ask, like, are there hot seat experiences, Laylee, like what you were talking about? Like, can you put your guard down, your walls down, and can you really learn in this environment? I think hot seats are a big thing. If they just have like a curriculum, like you said, of this is what I'm teaching all day on how I do things and hoping that you can take some of that for your own business versus like hot seat experiences where you get the time to be like, this is what I want to do with my business. Only answer questions related to that hot seat, whatever that person is asking for feedback on. It's going to be totally different than what like a mastermind leader would teach in a 1-hour session during that mastermind retreat kind of thing. So look for that. And then also kind of look for what all is involved in the mastermind experience. Are they just kind of throwing in one of their online courses to the mastermind to kind of increase the price? That's probably not helpful. That's probably not what you want. You would just go buy the online course. How available are they? Is it just like a Slack channel or something with the mastermind people who are all there and they expect you to just learn from one another? Or are they going to be doing bi-monthly or monthly calls? Are they going to be available via Voxer or email or text for you one-on-one? Like you really have to ask those tough questions of like, this is what I expect from this experience and can you give it to me? And if not, you guys, it's okay. There's people out there who offer what you're looking for. So just kind of be aware of that difference, I would say, Laylee, for in-person stuff coming in 2022. Like, do you want workshops that are a little more quick, but you still get the in-person experience, a retreat, which is a little bit longer, but it's not like there's usually not any online component of it, or a mastermind, which is a longer period of time, I think, for people who are more like in the growing and scaling stage of their business, I would say, and need help from others who are doing a very similar thing. Any advice on that I just talked about, Laylee?
No, I think it's super important to identify those differences. And I also think that if you want to dive in a little bit deeper to understanding the difference between a group coaching program and a mastermind, I think that's something that a lot of people mix up. And even educators mix it up. I see educators, advertising masterminds that to me seem more like group coaching, or group coaching that seems more to me like a mastermind. So at this point, the definition has become so, different to everybody. But for me, I view a mastermind as peer-to-peer education. So you really are relying more on the members of the group than on the leader of the group. The leader is more of a facilitator and less of they still will be your coach probably, and they'll still lead things, but they mostly facilitate conversation. And the expectation is that all the peers in the group are kind of in similar stages and can really feed into one another's growth. Whereas group coaching, you're all sitting in a classroom with one teacher who is coaching you. A mastermind, I envision a mastermind as like the chairs in the classroom put into a circle and you're all looking at each other. And I envision group coaching as there's a teacher at the front of the room and we're all sitting together in the audience.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that because it really gets to my point of like, I think people get their hopes up and they're really discouraged at the end of a group coaching or a mastermind experience because they didn't have one or the other and their expectations were different from the get-go. So I love that you said that too, because I think my mastermind experience, and I've talked about this, you guys, on other podcasts, but like I got a lot out of it because I loved the hot seats. I was like, give me all of your advice, 20 women that are here with me. I want everybody's, not just the mastermind leaders. And I just like didn't really care when the mastermind leader was like teaching a bunch of stuff. I was like, I can really like leave all this because it doesn't really pertain to my business kind of thing. So I think that there was a little bit too much of, convoluted intertwining of group coaching versus masterminding. And I love that you're like, this is peer to peer. Like you have to be all in it to help one another and you have to give as much as you take. And I think you're going to learn and grow. And like if you find like one nugget at masterminds that helps you scale your business, that's totally worth it. And also the relationships. I mean, Laylee, the people that you meet in masterminds and then you grow and scale together as entrepreneurs is, I think, priceless. It's worth every penny of a mastermind. But if you're not in that stage looking for that type of coaching experience or wanting to give that type of coaching experience, and I would say mastermind leaders should not be people that should be group coaches. I think that those people have been in it for a long time. They know their shit, so to speak, and they are ready to just facilitate the full mastermind experience versus people who are like, all they want to do is coach and like give what they know to others and not allowing the space for the others to teach themselves how to grow and scale and be like, oh, that's an interesting way of how you do this back-end boutique business or something like that, where they're like, oh, I would never do that in my business. That's more of a group coaching experience. And I think lots of people need to start there. They need to start with group coaching and instead of going straight into a mastermind. Would you agree, Laylee? I think lots of people are like, oh, I'm just going to host a mastermind. But I'm like, wait, have you even done group coaching yet? Because the two are very different.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think it boils down to, again, being really aware of what it is that you are good at and what you have seen continued success in and what you're able to kind of provide in terms of transformation for your people.
I love it. I love it. All right. So for people, first of all, you have a really good online course, and I want to make sure we get this out there because it's a really good kind of starting point for people in terms of what all do I need to know about becoming a business coach? What are kind of the steps and the best practices to take? Can you give a little bit of insight into your online course, what it offers, kind of what they're going to get out of that? And then from there, kind of what you would suggest for people, in terms of finding a coach or doing a big mastermind or something like that. If they're leading up to 2022 per se and looking for kind of a bigger mastermind type of group coaching or something experience, they probably need to start with like the basics, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Creative Educator Academy is definitely like a foundational course that teaches you. It is foundational, but it's less about how to like market as an educator and more about how to actually create curriculums that teach people well. So it's teaching you how to teach in any type of educational setting, which is a big claim, but follow with me here for a second. Like we start with the one-on-one, but really once you get into teaching, you realize that curriculum development and creating plans for how to convey education can be done for any type of educational offering. So we have a unit on coaching or mentoring, whatever you want to call it. We have one on group settings like masterminds and small groups and workshops. We have a unit on speaking and public speaking and how it's just as important to craft a talk with intention and with a clear cut, path as well. So there's a speaking unit. A course creation unit is being added in as we speak. It's in production right now. And so basically we touch on each type of educational setting that you could potentially be a part of and use the same baseline foundational curriculum development within each of those units. So it's my favorite. I love it. I think it's super, without sounding, too cocky about it. I think it's super helpful for people who have never taught, or have never really thought about the work that goes into becoming a coach or a strategist or a mentor, whatever you want to call it, or even a public speaker. And it really delves into how to get you there in a way that is impactful, that's effective, and that's actually really quality education, and not just, like I said before, like throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. Like it's going to help you actually know that what you're doing works. So that's the course. Thanks for asking. And then of course, beyond that, there are, like you mentioned, higher level masterminds. I have one. It's very small and I only do it 1 to 2 times a year. If 2 times, I think next year I'll probably just do the one. We're adding an in-person conference that's for Academy alumni only to be able to level up. But if you're looking for something to invest in mastermind wise or coaching wise, even one-to-one, I think just looking at the people that you admire and that you've learned from in the past, seeing if they don't offer something, that's okay. Like I mentioned, people really should be teaching what they're experts in, but maybe seeking them out and saying like, who have you learned from as an educator that you've really loved learning from? Don't be afraid to ask for those recommendations and to really dig in and do some research on it and not just rely on seeing what's shiny and pretty. I have been caught into that trap too. Like people who use a lot of really like, it's just like sexy copy, like, ooh, make money while you sleep. Ooh, like be a profitable coach while not burning out. Like, okay, but tell me how first or tell me how you plan on teaching that to me and then I'll dive in. So I think that'd be my tip on how to find something that's a little bit higher level if you're there yet. But in terms of foundational and then moving your way up, we've kind of created within, my small but mighty team over here at the Academy, we have created a pathway that will kind of take you from foundational level to expert educator, and being able to provide those things for people as they grow, I think is really important, at least from my perspective as an educator for educators.
The summation that you just did is phenomenal, because I totally agree, you guys. Kind of wrap up this episode here. It's really the foundations, like build the foundations. If you haven't already been coached by a business coach, do that. Find avenues to get coached by others, not only doing online stuff and online courses, but find one-on-one experiences, retreats, masterminds, those type of things, because your experience is really going to help you become a better educator yourself. I think the number one thing Laylee and I would probably say is don't just jump into becoming a business coach willy-nilly without educating yourself on how that works. And then realize that there's going to be bumps in the roads, that you're going to take different paths than others, that you aren't just going to become like an expert and a speaker who's making thousands of dollars on stage overnight, that it takes time, that your educational entrepreneurial journey is going to be, I would say, a long term versus just a short win situation. And then as Laylee said, really make sure that you understand why you're doing things and continue that process and look for red flags and, watch out for the no-nos in the educational world, and just continue to be a better and better educator to your clients and your customers and the people that you're helping and coaching, because you don't want to lose sight of like why you started it to begin with. And that can happen in time because it's a long-term process for education. You need to consistently like check in with yourself. I always say from the neck up, like, where are you? What's your ego looking like, kind of thing. Laylee, I know you already just said like all the things that you offer, and I would love to push people your way if possible, because I think you're phenomenal to learn from. I think you have a breath of fresh air type of wisdom in the industry that's super needed. Where can people find you best? And then just follow up with like the last quick tip that you would share with them as a finale to this episode.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much. That means the world to me, especially coming from you. You can find me on my website is probably the best place to find all of the things I listed. It's just layleeemadi.com. But if you want to connect with me, I'm over on Instagram at Laylee_Emadi. I know it's a lot of words. There's a lot of letters happening your way, but there's not a lot of Laylees out there. So find me on Instagram, send me a voice memo, send me a DM. I love connecting with people on there. And then I guess my last quick tip, finale, I guess, for any up and coming educator or somebody who's just passionate about sharing their knowledge is to allow yourself the time to get there. I think that we live in a world full of instant gratification. And like I said, a lot of like sexy messaging that like you can book, completely replace your income with education. And yes, you can. But I think, giving yourself the time and realizing that like, there is no race to run. We are supposed to be able to run our businesses until we decide to retire. That's the goal, is that our business will match the longevity of basically like our working lives. So don't rush it. You can't really take back bad reputation. You can have missteps and you can take calculated risks, but don't rush the process. Just like allow yourself to enjoy it, allow yourself to invest in it, and allow yourself to really take the time to grow in the right way.
But perfect ending. Love it. You guys, I will put Laylee's, all of her links everywhere. I will make sure that when we promote this episode too, that we have all the swipe ups to her website, and then also links to her on Instagram. I hang out with Laylee every so often too at events and stuff. So I always make sure to tag her. So you'll find her in some way, shape, or form. But thanks again, Laylee, for being on the episode. I really appreciate you giving the time to all of us.
Thank you, Paige.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Legal Paige podcast. See, I told you being legally legit isn't so scary. Be sure to visit thelegalpage.com for all show notes. And it would be super awesome if you could head over to iTunes and leave a review. Last but not least, don't forget to join my free Facebook group for unlimited legal and biz Q&A. Chat soon, Legal Pagers.